I did not. Okay. Yes.
Guys, I just wanted to remind all of you that there is a crypto challenge. Nobody's solved it yet, so far as I know. Have you solved it? When you solve it, you will have the opportunity to record that you've solved it. You'll know because it'll ask you to fill out your name and stuff. Okay, so good luck to everybody. Game on.
All right. How's everybody doing? Good? I'm the only thing standing between you and the after party, so try not to go over. So I'm Brett Hawkins. I'm going to be talking about crypto ransomware today. I did not know that this is a gaming theme for this year. I submitted the talk before I knew it was a gaming theme, so the fact that it was Call of Duty, just a coincidence. I was actually playing Call of Duty when I thought of the title. But so let's go ahead and get started. The clicker works. So just disclosure or disclaimer. The research I did in this is in no way affiliated with my employer. It was completely done on my own time. So just kind of the outline, kind of what we're going to talk about. So what crypto ransomware is, how to defend against it, how to respond against it. Also going to go over a tool I wrote that's going to help you in the response. So about me, senior security analyst in the private sector. Have a couple certifications, GSEC and my CEH. Currently enrolled in the cybersecurity engineering graduate certificate program with SANS. My free time, I like doing security research, which is kind of how this talk came about. I also like playing sports, basketball and golf. By no means am I good at golf, but I like playing it. Of course, video games, hence the title of the talk. And I've also been a member of the local chapter of InfraGuard for probably about 4 years now as well. So if you are not a member, I highly recommend you become a member. So crypto ransomware. You see it in the news. You continue to see it in the news. New variants out. It's just an ongoing battle, right? One variant comes out. No variant comes. It just keeps, the cycle keeps on. It keeps going. So at the very basics, what is crypto ransomware? It's malware. It encrypts targeted file extensions on your machine, making them unusable. And that includes anything that is mapped to your machine. So any map drive. So and it includes as well Dropbox, Google Drive, and OneDrive. So anything that you install, like a local client, if you have Dropbox on your machine, so it's going to create that Dropbox folder, right? So that's fair game. So if you install the Dropbox client, the Google Drive client, that is fair game for what the malware will encrypt. Also, if you have a flash drive plugged in, obviously it maps the drive, so it's going to hit that as well. And you'll see later, I'm going to go over like a high-level kind of payload if you were to write your own crypto ransomware, just kind of how it would work. So obviously, it requires payment to decrypt files. That's why the criminals keep doing it, because they're making money. All versions of Windows are targeted. There was like an Android version of it supposedly that came out, but I don't think that really went anywhere. Right now, it is Windows. They are targeting Windows. That's what businesses use. Businesses use Windows. Your business users are using Windows. As I said, they're making a lot of money, so it's a good business, right? I'm going to go over some cool stats that I found, some of the different variants, and how much money some of the different variants are making. And obviously, like I said, it's an ongoing battle. New variants keep coming out. After CryptoLocker, after the Game Over Zeus botnet got taken down, I think it was like June or July 2014, you still saw more variants come out. So here's kind of the history. So starting with CryptoLocker in September 2013. So after CryptoLocker, you had CryptoWall. Then you had another variant of CryptoWall called Crypto Defense. Then you had CTBLocker, which introduced the hosting of the command and control servers on Tor. You had CryptoWall 2.0 that came out, which then started using Tor as well. Torrent Locker was like a twist between CryptoLocker and CryptoWall. CryptoWall 3.0, you've probably seen that in the news lately. Tesla Crypt is a big one this year so far. That one actually targets gaming files as well for those gamers. Alpha Crypt came out shortly after that. That's just a Tesla Crypt variant. And then one I want to talk about here is Tox. How many of you have heard of Tox? You heard that the ransomware as a service? So what they did was they've taken the distribution out of their hands. So you can go on this site, create your own ransomware for free, All right, it's like really easy, like point and click, create your own. You choose how you want to distribute it, whether you spam, a spam message, whatever. And what's cool about it is that the author of talks, he gets a 20% kickback of whatever you make. So you might, let's say you make $100,000, he's going to get 20% of that. So that's a pretty good for him, because he doesn't have to distribute it, right? He just provides the framework, and you're the one that's actually sending it. So that, and I think, so right now he's actually trying to sell the platform, if you've read that, because it just became too much for him to handle, because it became very popular. I think we're going to start seeing more and more things like this. Ransomware as a service, that's a new term, software as a service. This is ransomware as a service. So becoming infected. You're seeing exploit kits. These exploit kits take advantage of some of these vulnerabilities, but so the Angler exploit kit, you've probably heard about this recently. So that's actually distributing CryptoWall 3.0. And SANS, the Internet Storm Center, anybody follow the Internet Storm Center? They had a great article, I think it was a week or two ago. So if any organizations have seen this, it's a targeted spam message, and it's got my resume in the title, right? And it's a zip file. Inside that zip file, it's an HTML doc. So once the user opens that HTML doc, redirects to a Google Docs URL where it pulls down another zip file with the actual executable. So that's something that they started seeing the last few weeks. They've really started to see an uptick in that. And that kind of ties in with the malicious spam there. But these exploit kits, they're taking advantage of mainly these 5 vulnerabilities. So you got Adobe Flash, which obviously you see with any malware, it's trying to take advantage of Flash. Internet Explorer, Java, obviously Java, Silverlight, and then Adobe Reader. Now, another thing with the malicious spam, when CryptoLocker first came out, it was specifically sending zip files that were disguised as PDF docs were actually executable. So that's kind of how CryptoLocker, that was the main way you're becoming infected with CryptoLocker. I think you're just going to continuously see spam, obviously, as always. A couple different botnets. So as I mentioned, the Game Over Zeus botnet, that was mainly used to distribute CryptoLocker. That was taken down in like June or July, kind of to stop the distribution of CryptoLocker, but it really didn't matter because more variants just kept coming out and doing the same thing. The cut whale mass spam attack, that was distributing CryptoWall 3.0 through just a spam campaign with like an invoice notification, and then malvertising. So this is just a great concept, right? Rather than try to redirect you to a malicious website, I'm going to let you go to a legitimate website like New York Times and just serve you up malicious ads. It's pretty smart from the attacker's point of view. And obviously, drive-by downloads. So, kind of sending Wonka, oh, you can't open your files, you must have crypto ransomware. So obviously not true, but we're going to talk about the behavior of crypto ransomware. Processes, registry keys, splash screen, command control, and files. What I've done with these, so there's tons of resources. I have references at the end that you can use. All these different variants, right? They're using maybe different registry keys. Maybe they're using the same registry keys. A lot of them are using the same type of registry keys or file locations. What I've done with this is I've taken all the different variants and compiled that into one essential list of these are the reg keys you look for, processes, file directories, and my tool will actually do that all for you in the identification phase during incident response that I'll talk about later. So processes, look for randomly named processes running in these directories, not just these directories, but it could be a subdirectory of that one level deep. So obviously those Windows guys, the environment variable app data does not point to app data. It'll point to like app data roaming, but in app data local, roaming, you get it. Now, there's not a set number of characters that the executable is, it's not like, all of them are 7 or all of them are 8. Although most of the time, if you look at the different variants, the executable is usually between 7 and 10 characters from what I've seen. So if you look at registry keys, the biggest one that's used is this top one here. So the current user key, current user where whatever user is infected. So this run key is used in a lot of them. The run once key. Now, for those familiar with Windows registry, there's think about 11 registry keys as far as if you want to have something run at boot time or log on or whatever. It doesn't mean that they're just going to be restricted to using run and run once as far as something, for persistence, once they boot up. So my tool, I actually took all those different registry keys and it's going to check all those as well. It's like the win logon registry key, the local machine run registry key, stuff like that. Also, in the software registry key, you might see a randomly named subkey right there. Look for that. Another one, so I'm going to talk about this bottom one. So some of them, specifically Coin Vault, that variant, it actually changed your wallpaper to something that's like, you've been encrypted by, Coin Vault. So it'll actually drop a wallpaper on there, and your wallpaper registry value inside the desktop key is actually going to point to whatever wallpaper that is. So these are some of the splash screens. You probably can't see this from here, but on Bleeping Computer is where I got these images. So the top left one there, that's CryptoWall. Top right, CTB Locker, and the bottom one is BitCryptor. You're going to see a lot of the different variants are going to look, the splash screens are look different. Some of them look the same. So I forget which one it was, but one of them looks exactly like CryptoLocker. But the original CryptoLocker one, it was like an all red with like a blue and white shield, and it said, your files were encrypted, pay now. So you're going to see some differences in the splash screens here, and they'll give it gives you your nice unique URL, so if you want to pay to get your files decrypted, you can go straight there. It lets you know, how did it happen. So for CryptoWall, it got encrypted with RSA 2048-bit. So it's going to give you instructions, so it makes it easy to pay them so they can make their money. So for command and control, I just chose these three. Dell SecureWorks did some really great research on these three. So as far as communication, I want to talk about that a little bit. So something interesting with Tesla Crypt. So once you become infected, it's going to send an HTTP GET request with a base64 encoded URL. Inside of that URL, it's gonna want to determine three things to send the command and control. Either it's a newly infected machine, the machine is done being encrypted, or somebody's trying to pay. Because of this, it's actually not constantly beaconing back and forth once you're infected by Tesla Crypt. So if you cut off internet access, whatever, if you prevent the command and control communication, it's not going to stop encryption. Whereas with CryptoLocker and CryptoWall, it's constantly beaconing back and forth. Another thing I want to point out is the domain generation algorithm. So if you remember with CryptoLocker, it actually, once it infected your machine, it would generate, I think, around 1,000 unique domains to try to reach out for a command and control server. So that's something pretty interesting. And they actually there's actually an error in the algorithm that prevented it from generating domains with the letter Z in it for some reason. I don't know why they didn't think about that, but so that's something interesting with that. CryptoLocker was not hosted on the Tor network, but you're starting to see now it's starting to go to their hosting command and control on the Tor network to remain anonymous. So probably not gonna be able to see all this, but so files. So if anybody's seen the movie Zoolander, it's the files are in the computer. They actually took this computer and they threw it on the ground to try to get the files out. But so different splash screens. So different variants are using different names for splash screens, right? So CryptoLocker, I think, decrypt instruction. Another variant was help decrypt. So new variants might use a different splash screen. So my tool that I'm going to show is going to detect all of those. So you don't have to manually check for every single one. And kind of different wallpapers that they might have. But these are based on all of the different variants that have been out so far, all the way up to the latest, the Tox ransomware as a service. So you're going to see random executables in these paths, which are the same from the processes slide. Also, you want to check one subdirectory deep of those. It could create a randomly named directory and then put that randomly named executable in that directory. Some other random files from doing my research. One in particular is a scheduled job. Right there, it'll have a random 7 characters for a scheduled job for persistence. And then also, for some variants, particularly CTB Locker and Tesla Crypt, it's going to rename the extension of the file. So for Tesla Crypt, it's going to rename it to .ecc, .exx, .ezz, or .encrypted. And the funny thing is, for TeslaCrypt, it might rename it to .ecc, but it does not use ECC for its encryption algorithm. It uses it uses AES, I believe. Then for CTB locker, it's either going to use .ctb, .ctb2, or just a random 7 characters. That does not vary there. They do use 7 characters. So I said I was going to talk about kind of high level the payload if you're going to write a crypto ransomware, how it would work. This isn't any particular language, but I guess it looks more like Python, as you can see. So you have your file extension array of all your different files, so there's .doc, PowerPoint, whatever. You have your array of different drives, so A all the way through Z, just so you can hit them all, anything that's mapped. Then for every single drive in that alphabet, I'm going to go to every single directory. I'm going to grab every single file, and if that file extension matches, is contained in my file extension array, I'm going to encrypt that file. Once I'm done with everything, I'm going to show the splash screen. So that's another thing to note with these, that it's not actually going to pop up the splash screen on the user's computer until it's completely done. So it could be in the middle of encrypting and you could catch it, which is what I'm going to kind of talk about later. But this is just kind of high level, what it does kind of when you talk about, when people say, well, it can reach map drives, it can reach Dropbox, all that. Well, how? This is how. You have these for loops, and it's going to go through there, and it's going to encrypt. It's going to encrypt your files. So making money. That is the whole reason they're doing this. If they weren't making money, the new variants would not keep coming out. So preferred payment is Bitcoin. There's some of these different ones: PayPal, MyCash, MoneyPax, whatever. Bitcoin is the preferred method. Now, so payments ranging from $120 to $10,000. There's one documented instance of somebody paying $10,000 for a crypto wall infection. So that's the outlier in this. Usually it's not all the way up to $10,000. But then obviously there's a time limit for payment, and the price is going to increase for the private key, because you need the private key to decrypt your files. This screenshot here from Dell SecureWorks is pretty good. I know you probably can't see it from here, but I will be distributing the slides on Twitter probably tomorrow. But this is a screenshot that they did once they paid for CryptoWall to get it decrypted. So it's a zip folder, and in that it has the decryption program, and it has the private key as well. So that's kind of what you would see if you were to pay to get your files decrypted. And I think this one here is $500 is what they paid in Bitcoin. So one does not simply get their files fixed for free, right? You got to pay. So some statistics here that I thought they were pretty cool. So CryptoLocker, as I said, it came out in October 2013. So by the end of 2013, which is in just a few months, it made up to $30 million. That's a lot. That's a lot of money. It can buy a lot of cars, a lot of houses. So TeslaCrypt, they made around $75,000 in 2 months. Again, it's pretty good money. Torrent Locker, which was the variant that was like CryptoWall and CryptoLocker combined, that made around $220,000 from November. So 1 month, it made $220,000. And then, again, all these stats are from Dell SecureWorks, PC World, and Soft PD News had some of these statistics. So Dell SecureWorks actually did, they got stats off of a ransom payment server for CryptoWall in 2014, and it kind of shows the distribution of what people were paying. So as you can see, a lot of people paid early on. So 72% of that they paid between $200 and $750. Then people that paid $1,000, it was about 24%, and then anything greater than that was around 2%. With the again, in this metric here is the $10,000 payment there, so that's included in that. That was the outlier. So here's just some similarities and differences between the different variants. So I have encryption there, kind of the price to decrypt, and the files targeted. I want to talk about the files targeted here. There's a similarity. You have all these different variants. Maybe TeslaCrypt is targeting video game files, and CTB Locker isn't. Some of them are targeting source code files, others aren't. If you look at these, the common files it's trying to grab, it's going to be Office documents, photos. Those are the two common ones. What do users, when your average user, they're going to use the computer to either browse the web, word processing, photos, videos, and music, right? And the goal of crypto ransomware is not to screw up executables and DLLs, because you wouldn't be able to boot up your machine, right? They want your machine to be usable, but what you want to use on that machine, they want to take it away from you, so that creates that sense of urgency. Man, I got to use these files, I need to pay, right? So you're not going to see in here that they're targeting executables and DLLs, because that's just going to break your system, right? That's not the goal. Destruction is not the goal. The goal is for them to make money. And you can see just the different encryption algorithms. So yeah, TeslaCrypt uses AES, not .ECC, as the file extension could say. RSA is used here, but I think with the latest one, TeslaCrypt. So I think they're going to start, whether it's AES, RSA, either way, you're not going to be able to decrypt that bad boy. So let's talk about defense. So I kind of talked about, what is crypto ransomware now? Now, how do we defend against this, right? So two things. So there's a LeBron shout out right there, prevention, right? Preventing Derrick Rose from getting that shot up. So prevention and then detection. Now we talk about prevention. You're going to see a lot of, application and process whitelisting, right? So app locker or software restriction policy. So I have a table there of some differences between the two. So I think, mostly what I've seen is people recommending app locker. It gives you a log-only mode. You can PowerShell support, which is huge, right? So you need support with PowerShell. So that's the first step there. So using those for known directories that, like the directories I talked about, files shouldn't be executing from there. Obviously testing your environment, because maybe for some reason you do have things running out of app data. But that's a first step, because if that, malware gets dropped and it tries to run that executable, if you have something in place to block that, it's pretty good. Email executable blocking, so you should not allow just flat out emailing of executables. So CryptoLocker, that's what it did. It had an executable that got emailed disguised as a PDF. Security awareness training is huge. I've heard it today, multiple talks about educating your users. That's very important, specifically with phishing and with malicious websites. Create a quick reference guide, just of one sheet that they can put at their desk that they can reference for phishing. Give them some sort of training. Malicious websites, give them a one sheet quick reference guide. Your average users love those one sheet quick reference guides, right? So kind of helping them, they get an email, I'm not sure about this, let me check my quick reference guide. So patching, obviously in large organizations, patching is difficult, right? You have, thousands of users, you patch all those machines, people worried about them breaking, right? Breaking applications. So patching is important, mainly for these 5 things that I talked about the exploit kits are taking advantage of. Java, Silverlight, Adobe Flash, IE. Although Microsoft is moving to a new browser in Windows 10, so we'll see how that works. This is huge right here. Perform regular daily backups. I listed a few there. Crash Plan is great. Symantec's got a couple products, Net Backup and Backup Exec. You want to make sure you're backing up your files, because if you get hit with this, let's say it's a C-level executive. If one of them get hit with this, you need to recover those files right away, right? So making sure you have daily backups that you can recover from is huge with this, because like I said, once the files are encrypted, you're not decrypting them unless you pay or you recover them, right? So you need to make sure that you have a daily backup process in place. Also, this is pretty huge here. So there's endpoint protection programs that have a host intrusion prevention system feature in them. Acts as kind of like a safety net if you're not able to patch very regularly, so they can prevent things from happening that try to take advantage of patches. So those 3. So Symantec, Kaspersky, and McAfee all have some sort of HIPS module that you can have active on those. So those are really, really good. So detection, file integrity monitoring is huge. So there's a few products right there. Obviously, it's probably not ideal to put something like Tripwire or SymTrack on every endpoint in your environment. That's going to be a lot of data. Files changing. Maybe some of your more sensitive environments, maybe your file shares, you do that. But putting on every single machine probably isn't ideal. But knowing what's changing, establishing that baseline, and side of that baseline. Command and control communication I talked about. If you don't have a SIM, those 3 logs are what you're going to want to look at. So your web traffic logs, like I talked about with TeslaCrypt with that base64 encoded GET request. Look at your firewall logs, and then your DNS logs as well. Kind of, search for if somebody's, creating a random DNS server, it's probably not good, right? And the Dell SecureWorks links that I included on a previous website, they have some lists of IP addresses and domains associated with CryptoWall, TeslaCrypt, and you can also across the web you can find additional IP addresses and domains that you can look for. If you have a SIM, that's great. Create an alert for it so that you can get alerted right away. But I guess the whole point is, if they're hosted on the Tor network, you're kind of it kind of puts you at a disadvantage, right? So, talk about defense. Let's talk about response, right? So, one of these gets through. How do you respond? So, in information security, most of the time we're going to spend our time between preparation and identification. That's usually where we spend our time, right? Preparing, whether it's processes, technology, and then identification, identifying if something is indeed an incident, and then responding to it, right? So most of our time is spent between those two. So any of you that have taken the SANS GCIH course, they talk about PICRL, preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and lessons learned, right? So these are the kind of steps you want to go through. As far as preparation, you just want to make sure that you review your incident response plan with the team members, the appropriate team members, right? So different processes: initial identification of the crypto ransomware, how to reimage the machine, restoring your system and your file share backups. That is huge. And then searching your file shares, right? You need to have a process in place on how to search those file shares for any files that may be encrypted. And you're probably asking, well, how do you do that? Well, luckily, some of the newer variants, what they've done is those decrypt instruction files, the splash screens, they'll put that in every single directory that got hit, make it nice and convenient for you. So, yeah, ransomware as a service, so. Yeah, customer service, that's what they're all about, is customer service. Actually, some of them even have like a 24/7 customer service line that you can call, and they're really nice, oh, I'm really sorry about that, let me tell you how you can get them decrypted. How's their English? I don't think it's very well. Yeah. I don't think it is. Just make sure, like I said, new variants keep coming out, so make sure that your plan is up to date with the most recent variants. So if something is, if a new registry key is being targeted or something else is happening, make sure that you have that in place. So for instance, when I think it was when TeslaCrypt came out, something different that it did. So some of the earlier variants, right? One of the recommendations was to use volume shadow copies and just restore those, right? Well, TeslaCrypt wipes that out. So that's some new functionality you would need to know about to adjust your processes. So if your process said use a volume shadow copy as a backup feature, and then you get hit with TeslaCrypt and it's like, oh, that doesn't work, right? So that's something you need to take into account. So identification, and after this slide I'm going to show a demo of my tool. But what you need to do is, so you get a call from, whether it's your tier 1 or whether, whoever your tier 1 is, they get a call from a user. Hey, I can't open this document. I can't open, I don't know what's going on, right? At that point, the crypto ransomware could be in process of encrypting those files, and you could stop it, right? So what you want to do is, so let's say you get that call. As far as identification, so these 4 things are what you need to check. So is a ransomware splash screen displayed? Obviously, if one is, then you're hit with crypto ransomware. Can Office documents and picture files be opened or viewed? Is it just one file? Is it multiple? The reason I chose Office documents and pictures, again, those are the 2 most common ones between the different variants. Also, check for randomly named programs running out of known crypto ransomware directories, the ones that I talked about, as well as you want to check those known registry keys that are being used, the run key, software key, whatever. Now, based upon this quick check, it's likely crypto ransomware if A is true, or if B and D are true, or if B and C are true. Now, my tool is going to help out with A, C, and D that I'll demo in a second. And based on that information gathered, kind of builds, if you are getting hit, you want to kind of know which variant you got hit with, right? Put the appropriate controls in place. So the splash screen, as you saw, more than often is going to determine this. All right, so I'm gonna do a quick demo here. So I wrote a command line tool. It's on GitHub. Feel free to download it. Look at the code. So what this does is it helps out in the identification phase. So all those different registry keys and processes, it's going to just check all this stuff for you. And I'm going to keep updating this as newer variants come out on GitHub as well. So I'm going to do a quick demo of this. All right, so I planted a few files on here in this VM. I've also planted a registry key in here. So what this is going to do is it's going to give you a report. I'll show you real quick. I'm going to run the tool real quick. All right, so what it's doing now, so you give it the user profile that you want to investigate. So let's say this user Hawk, he's the one that he thinks he might have crypto ransomware, right? So you're going to run that, and then you're going to put the all switch in there. So it's going to grab files, processes, registry keys, and then it's going to build a summary file. Now, what this summary file is, the whole goal of this is to help you quickly respond, and this summary file is going to kind of remove the noise for you so you have less to look at. So it's CSV format. So if you have Excel on your machine, it obviously looks a lot better and you can sort it. So what this is going to do, open this up. So this summary file, so it's going to have a file summary, process summary, and registry summary. So as you can see here, over here, the file summary. So obviously the decrypt instructions file was detected. In these directories here, it's going to show you the creation time, last update, and the last time it was accessed. That could help you out as far as the initial kind of point of infection, mainly used for restore. When do I restore my backups from? If I got hit today, I'm going to want to pull the backups from yesterday, right? So another thing it caught was that there was there's an executable inside of app data local. Now again, this is just to remove the noise, right? So you're obviously going to have some the legitimate things, right? But this is literally just to remove the noise, make it nice and quick for you to identify. So processes, obviously that one running on a program data right now is probably not the best process. And also you're going to see in the run key right there that it is in the run key, so for persistence. Now you're going to see, pull this up. So obviously a lot of the software Microsoft key is obviously legitimate. Again, this is just to remove the noise. So this summary file should help you quickly identify whether it is crypto ransomware or not. All right. Okay. So again, this tool is on GitHub. Feel free to download it. You'll see the instructions on the README. There's just a zip file you can download. It's got the executable in there. Runs on Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 8. Okay, so containment, right? So you determine you are hit. How do you contain this, right? So first off, do not initiate a virus scan. You're probably wondering why. Well, because in the next stage is eradication. We want to find root cause. If you run a virus scan and wipe a bunch of stuff out, we're not going to be able to determine the root cause. So do not initiate a virus scan. Disconnect it from the network so it cannot reach any more network shares, any external drives, and then determine the state of the files on the user's backup as well as the shared drives, kind of what I talked about before, that my script could help you identify kind of when you got hit as to which backups to recover. Power down that computer, send it to the security team. This is assuming that your tier 1 is getting it. If the security team is involved in the initial call from the user, then obviously they would just get it sent to them. But yeah, send it to the security team for your analysis or whoever you have do the analysis. So eradication, right? I know a lot of words, but this was mainly so that when I distribute this over Twitter, it'll be better. But so the whole goal here: determine the cause and the symptoms, right? How did this happen? Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Some questions you can ask. Hey, did you open an attachment by chance? Did you go to a website? Did it try to download something? Most users are gonna be like, oh no, I don't think I did. I didn't see anything come through, right? So that's what you're going to get most of the time. But just in case you have a conscious user, they may know the answer to that. And another thing, when did you first notice the splash screen? Did they get the splash screen, a day before and they just minimized it and didn't even think about it? And then they're like, oh, I can't open some Word docs. Maybe I'll call help desk tomorrow, right? So that could be helpful as well. So you need, again, determine the most recent clean backup, and file shares if they did get hit. Do a forensic image, whether it's a full image, just a memory dump. There's some cool live triage scripts out there. Are anybody familiar with triage scripts? So essentially, it's not a full forensic image, but it's something that runs quick, and it's going to get every single, whether it's file on your machine, internet history, all kinds of stuff. There's some great triage scripts out there for Windows. And then the logs you want to check, your Windows event logs. That's assuming that you have the appropriate logging level. So there's some cool, some nice articles out there as far as what logging level you should have on your Windows machines. Your antivirus logs, they're probably not going to see it, but you can check them. Web traffic logs, and then your firewall logs. Seeing what is going on, put that timeline together. And there's some nice forensic tools too. I think the FTK. It's got a nice timeline feature that can actually build out from your forensic image. I think a timeline of kind of how things happened. I think FTK might do that. So now you need to recover, right? You've been hit. You determine root cause. You need to recover. So re-image the user machine. Don't mess around with just trying to remove the specific executables that you see. Just wipe it. Just wipe the machine. Restore the files from their most recent clean backup. Any file shares, make sure you restore those. Especially if a legal share or something like that gets hit, that's a pretty big deal, and it probably needs remediated pretty quickly. And then also kind of talked about Dropbox, Google Drive, and OneDrive. I know there's other programs like them, but those are the big three. The links on here actually are instructions on how to restore a previous file version of your files on Dropbox, Google Drive, and OneDrive in case those do get hit. If you do have the client installed on your machine and it does get hit. So lessons learned. It's important to have a lessons learned after this. Who, what, when, where, why, how. Meet with the team members involved. Whatever, for your process for initial identification and for, searching file shares. Meet with those team members. Have a meeting of what happened and basically how you can make it better going forward. Apply your appropriate fixes, whether it's process and technology. Is it technology? Is it a patch issue? Do we need to do patching? Processes, is it, we didn't catch all the files on the file share because our process for searching file shares isn't the best, right? So making sure that you apply those appropriate fixes so that next time if this happens, next time this doesn't happen, right, that you respond appropriately. So in closing, before I open up for questions, here's my contact info. So hawkbluedevil@gmail.com. I'm a big Duke basketball fan. If you're wondering why I have Blue Devil in there, it's because I'm a huge Duke basketball fan. National champions this year, by the way. And then also on Twitter, you request to follow me at hawkbluedevil. I'm actually going to distribute a link to my Dropbox for the slides probably tomorrow if you want to grab those. So open up for any questions. Yes.
Wondering, have you seen two things? Have you seen this? Everything that I've read is that all these variants either come through email or they're coming through a web link. I haven't seen any other methodology of this particular set of methods.
Yeah, so email is obviously pretty. The question was, are you, what she's reading is mostly, through email or through like browser links. Mostly, you're seeing spam, but also the exploit kits as well. So they're taking, browser-based things, right? So taking advantage of, whether it's a 0-day or if it's just a flat-out, a flaw that's been out for a month for Adobe Flash that you haven't patched, right? So not necessarily just malicious links, but spam, yes, that is very, that is used heavily, and then just flat out, browser-based stuff.
And then the follow-up to that is, have you seen, everything that I've seen suggests that really the service that stays on the local machine, and it goes out and encrypts in these remote places, but it doesn't drop anything until there's something out there.
Correct. Yeah, so you're asking basically if it's a worm, essentially. Yeah, so it is not a worm. So the actual malicious executables, whatever gets dropped, that stays on the local machine. It doesn't spread. That executable doesn't get copied to other, file shares or anything like that. It's staying on the local machine right now, at least. There could be a variant
That's
that.
why I asked you repeating again.
Yeah.
A couple different things. One thing that we saw with one of our users was that they were worried they were going to get in trouble when this flash screen came up and they didn't tell anyone. And we were in the process of transitioning backup systems from an old, media-based solution to a more disaster recovery solution.
Mm.
And by the time we started seeing the files that were getting hit by it,
Mm.
it was past the point of the backup where we could go back and restore the files. So
Oh.
letting users know that this is out there and that they're not going to get in trouble for
Right.
reporting it
Yeah.
is a huge thing to make sure.
Right, yeah, making sure that, whenever the first variant comes out, you should have sent a communication out to your users saying, hey, this is a new threat, right? Don't be afraid to contact us. We're here to help. So making sure, if you haven't already done that, please do that because you're just going to keep seeing it. But, when CryptoLocker first came out, definitely, good practice to send your communication out to your users.
And then another thing on the prevention side
Yes.
is the standard of basic security practices is to segment your data. If a user in marketing that, say, gets a lot of emails, doesn't have access to right to the financial directories or anything else like that, that's also been a headache that we've seen with different clients, was that they were kind of following the old model where everybody wants everything in the same shared drive.
Exactly, and that's let's say you have a large enterprise, and it's like how do you determine what data is on this share, what's on this share? It's a process, right? You have so many users, and you're like, okay, well this AD group should only be able to reach this. Who's in this AD group? But if you have hundreds, thousands, whatever AD groups, it's difficult. But yeah, that is another good technique to make sure that it's segmented as far as read-write access to different file shares.
And then on the detection side.
Mm.
If you are looking at things, one thing that we've seen with the users that have hit with it was the system slowed down while it was sitting there
Yep.
trying to hammer down on encrypting all these files.
Mm-hmm.
And B, we saw massive increases in the number of files they were accessing on the file share.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
even if you don't have direct access to the local machine right at that moment, you
Mhm.
can kind of look for patterns.
Right.
And you're sending to watch.
Yeah, if you have alerts like that stuff, that's great. Yep.
So just create a brand new file and delete the original one so that all your file created cases.
Sorry, what was the question again?
When it encrypts the file,
Mm.
it's going to create a brand new file as opposed to update one. So your
Essentially.
file create cases is all going to be brand new.
Well, no, not necessarily. So what I've seen is that it's gonna remain the same file. That file, it's gonna be the same file. So the file created date is going to remain whatever it was, but the file updated date, I'm trying to think if that is going to get. I think that would get updated. Modified date should change. Not some of them. Sorry, what was that? Yep. They're smart.
What about turning off file versioning on, say, Dropbox?
If you turn off file versioning?
No, are they working?
Not that I've seen in the research I did. I haven't seen that from the research I did. But that would, yeah. But I think to do that though, it's going to require you to authenticate somehow with whether Dropbox credentials or something like that. So you're going to need to authenticate somehow to make those system changes. I mean, if they have compromised credentials, then obviously they could do that. But I mean, with any spam, the question was, are these targeted? I mean, any spam you could either target or not target. I think most of these are just massive spam, not necessarily targeted, but some could indeed. Whoever's trying to distribute the malware. Yes, no one in the back. Okay. Okay. I think I might have saw that. Excuse me, what was the question? UNC pads. Oh, okay. So that actually would be a good option because, like I said in that kind of payload, it's just kind of iterating through drive letters, right? So if you just have the UNC pass, they're not going to be able to, that'd be like a brute force type thing, which is going to take forever compared to just the map drive. So yeah, if you just have the UNC pass, and that would, pretty sure that's going to defeat the, well, unless the malware builds into just see what is mapped, flat out what is mapped. So if it grabs the UNC pass, then really doesn't matter. So, I mean, if I was them, I would just build that functionality in where I would just see everything that's mapped and then just point to that. It doesn't wipe the drive, no. It doesn't delete it. It literally encrypts the file, so it's modified. It doesn't actually delete the files at all.
It overwrites the state the second on the drive.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's not like
Yeah, Tesla Crypt is the one that introduced the shutting off the volume shadow copies. I've not. So the question was, have you seen, OpenDNS or anybody providing any, queries that are being used with this? No, I haven't. And if you have a domain generation algorithm, you generate random things. But if you're pointing towards, to the Tor network, I think it'd be kind of difficult, right? But yeah, I haven't seen any of the research. I didn't see anything as far as OpenDNS or anything like that. And so the question was, have you seen any differences in speed as far as if it's just, if it's just encrypting like file headers or if it's offloading that encryption somewhere else? I haven't seen anything in the research I did as far as it varying at all. So, but that would be interesting to see if it does in fact do that.
We had some, I guess, a company that had something like, I don't know, hundreds of gigs encrypted, at least by the modification data, unless they are messing with those.
Right.
Within like, I don't know, like 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. That would seem
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So we were thinking maybe they were encrypting technically with file headers or something
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Any more questions? Good stuff. No more? All right. Well, hey, thanks again for letting me talk. Again, if you have any questions for me, come up and see me. Contact me on email or Twitter. All right. Thank you.